Greetings, fellow Slayers. Want to look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 5 now continues on with Fool for Love. At a routine patrol of the cemetery, Buffy fights with the vampire. Buffy has the upper hand, but when she attempts her killing blow, the vampire turns her stake around on her, and she is stabbed in the abdomen. She attempts to flee, but is cornered, and the vampire, wielding her stake, is about to finish her off, but Riley appears at that moment and fights him off before going to see Buffy. The next morning, Riley punches Buffy's stab wound. The embarrassing circumstance of nearly being killed by a lesser vamp with her own stake is now lost on her, and leads Buffy to fear that she may be losing her edge, despite Riley's reassurance. When Riley suggests to go to the hospital, Buffy hopes it would only upset her mother, and her enhanced healing abilities will kick in soon enough. Dawn comes in to tell them Joyce is coming up, prompting Riley and Buffy to hide the gauze and medical supplies they're using. Joyce notices a bottle of rubbing alcohol and asks if they're disinfecting something, prompting Dawn to say it was hers. Buffy has Riley take the rest of the gang to sweep the cemetery that night. Meanwhile, Buffy, rattled after nearly being killed despite having increased her training, does research with Giles to find out how previous Slayers died and what it was that made their last battle special, but they are unable to find any useful information, mostly because past watchers either found the subject too painful or were killed along with their slayers. Just knows that unfortunately it seems there was no one left who has witnessed the Slayer's last battle, but then Buffy realizes she knows someone who can help. She confronts Spike in his crypt, who demands to know what he did. She tells him that she wants to know how he managed to kill 2 Slayers. Later at the Bronze, she lays down ground rules. If it tells her what she wants to know, Spike gets a wad of money. Though initially resistant to give her anything useful, Spike barters with her for a plate of spicy buffalo wings, as he refuses to talk on an empty stomach. In doing so, Buffy inadvertently reveals her stab wound, leading Spike to annoy her further. Asked if he's always been this annoying, Spike says, "I've always been bad." London, 1880. The assertion is belied, however, by the quiet, shy, rather foppish gentleman Spike used to be, a young poet named William. While at a society ball, he works on a love poem, looking for another word for gleaming, but his unfinished work is snatched from his hands and read out loud, to the rude amusement of the boorish crowd. William is dubbed William the Bloody because of his bloody, awful poetry. Munzer declares that he would rather have a railroad spike through his head than hear more of William's poetry. The poem reveals his feelings of love and adoration for a woman. He speaks for the object of his affection, Cicely, whom he has loved from afar. She doesn't care for him, and when he admits the poem is about her, she rejects him, telling him that she feels nothing for him and that he is beneath her. William, devastated, leaves the house in tears, bumping into a group of strangers in the street. In a hay barn, he sits ripping up his love poems when Drusilla appears before him. She also brought him tears and comforts him by telling him that she sees his greatness and worth. She promises him a better future by her side, starring him after only minimal persuasion. Back at the present, Riley Gang finds several vampires loudly and drunkenly reveling in a crypt, including the one who staked Buffy. They decide to return in the morning when all the vampires are asleep, rather than take on the entire nest awake. Spike plays Pull while continuing his tale. After siring, Spike was completely different. Tired of being left out by the world, he became empowered and destructive and decided he needed to get himself a gang. Yorkshire, 1880. And Jill startles William at the bottom of a coal mine, asking why they haven't killed him yet. William, now having adopted his distinct accent and swagger, knows that he goes by the name Spike now. Spike's strong tendency to say mob rights simply for the joy of the fray is causing trouble for his new vampire family. His most recent hijinks resulted in their having to hide in an abandoned mine shaft, which angers and jealous, as he likes to treat himself and his women to luxury. And Jules feels that Spike's uncouth behavior is putting them increasingly in danger from being hunted by angry mobs. Spike feels Angelus only engages in fights that he knows he will win, rather than fighting with zeal and veracity. Angelus prefers the artistry of killing, seeing it separating them from being mere animals. Spike's insults finally cause Angelus to lash out viciously, and he rarely mistakes Spike where Spike notes that he has proved his point. The vampire knows that if he cannot teach Spike the error of his ways, some angry mob would, that or the Slayer. Spike sits up, so interested, and asks, "What's a Slayer?" Spike explains to Buffy that thereafter, he became obsessed with fighting and defeating the Slayer of that era. He notes that, as the first lesson, the Slayer must always reach for a weapon. The vampire already has all the weapons he needs. He vows out to demonstrate this. To illustrate this point further, he tells her of the first Slayer he killed, China, during the Boxer Rebellion, 1900. Spike fights with the Chinese Slayer. She cuts his left eyebrow, but she loses her sword. Spike kills her before she reaches for a stake on the floor. Jill arrives and the two revel and kill the Slayer and the taste of her blood before having sex. Outside, Spike and Drew tell Angelus and Darla of the Slayer's death. Angelus offers half-hearted congratulations before suggesting they leave soon, as the rebellion is boring him. Spike claims that it was the best night of his life. Buffy's disgusted at how he got off on it, but he counters that even if Buffy killed tens of thousands of vampires in her lifetime, all it takes to kill Slayer is for one vampire to have one good day, and that Buffy simply got complacent at the moment of truth. Meanwhile, Riley returns to the vampire nest alone, despite agreeing to wait. After staking the vampire that hurt Buffy, Riley blows up the rest of the vampires in the crypt with a grenade. New York, 1977. Spike tells Buffy about how he killed the second Slayer. Spike and Buffy fight out a play-by-play of the battle, which took place on a subway train. Spike knows that the second Slayer was not all business like the first. She had an improvisational style more closely resembling Buffy's. After he snapped the Slayer's neck, he took her black leather coat for himself. Spike then explains that the key to his victories was not in the particular moves or blows. The key was that each Slayer has a death wish, a desire to experience death, after causing so much of it. Additionally claiming that Buffy also has this wish, but his ties to the world that keep her anchored. I want to know what comes next because they wish for a final peace after a lifetime of being solely responsible for protecting the world from demons. Spike explains that the second that desire takes over, the Slayer will die because there are countless vampires just waiting to take advantage of this, a conclusion that Buffy immediately rejects. Spike and Buffy are almost standing nose to nose by this point, and Buffy quickly becomes shocked and confused as Spike comes on to her, trying to kiss her before grabbing her by the arms and challenging her to prove him wrong, claiming that he knows she wants to dance. In response, Buffy pushes Spike to the ground and says it wouldn't be him. He's beneath her. Buffy throws the money at Spike and walks away. Crying, Spike gathers up the scattered bills. Then he turns his face, expressing anger. Spike returns to his crypt and arms himself with a double-barreled shotgun, intent on killing Buffy for her final insult. Hermione begs him to reconsider this plan because he's tried and failed so many times before. She reminds him that the chip in his head will not let him hurt a human, and that the Slayer will only beat him up again, but not stake him outright. Spike returns that his pain will last for a couple of hours, and Buffy will be dead much longer than that. South America, 1998. Sheila turns away from Spike's devoted love because she cannot look at him without seeing and feeling the Slayer. And after Spike and Buffy's original alliance against Angelus, behind them is the Chaos Demon with huge slimy antlers, with whom Drusilla had been flirting. She recognizes, long before Spike does, his feelings for Buffy, and rejects it because he's no longer the same creature that had satisfied her for so many years. He insists that he did it all for her, to protect her because he loved her, but she cannot be convinced. Buffy returns home, still shaken from the combined experiences of the last 24 hours, and finds her mother packing clothes and toiletries into a suitcase. She inquires where Joyce was going, and her mother explains that her health conditions worsened to the point that she's going to sit in hospital observation and a CAT scan. The final revelation is too much for Buffy, who retreats to her back porch in tears. At that moment, Spike approaches with a shotgun. However, he shows his face when he sees that she is crying. He asks her what is wrong, and she says she doesn't want to talk about it. He sets the gun down and takes a seat next to her on the porch. Spike lays his hand on Buffy's back to comfort her. Aww. So let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. This is the second time Buffy is nearly killed by her own stake in her own hand. The first instance wasn't helpless. This episode contains two flashbacks which are repeated in Darla, the companion episode of Angel, which was originally shown immediately afterwards. The first one is a scene in the street where the tearful William leaves the party and bumps into Angelus, Darla, and Drusilla, only shown from their backs, before being started by Drew in an alleyway. In Darla, It's revealed that Drusilla was jealous of Angelus and Daryl's relationship, to which they, immediately before this happens, suggest she sire herself a companion. The second flashback takes place during the Boxer Rebellion when Angel, who was yet to reveal he regained his soul to anyone but Darla, learns that Spike killed the Slayer, although initially it looks like Angelus is envious or even praising him. When she says she smells fear and Angel demands they leave, it's seen in Darla that he knew there was a family hiding away in that direction. In Schoolhard, Spike had indeed mentioned he first killed the Slayer during the Boxer Rebellion. Spike says to Schoolhard that the Slayer he killed, Nikki Wood, begged for her life. Here, she's not shown begging, although the episode is structured as a flashback with 1977 Spike addressing Buffy during the time she would have been begging. In the initial episode, Damage, Slayer Donna recalls the words of past Slayers and speaks with Nikki's voice, begging Spike to spare her and let her go home to her son. Spike says that Buffy would eventually want herself to die just like the other Slayers he killed, to end the fear and uncertainty of every day possibly being her last. Spike's words would later prove correct about Buffy's death wish, which she had fallen into the early stages of her depression. Part of her had wanted to die in the gift, and she also tried to kill herself at once more feeling before Spike stops her. The same could be said about how Buffy's previous death in Prophecy Girl only happened due to her willingness to die that day. As a vampire, William adopted the name Spike from his practice of torturing people with railroad spikes. This episode reveals the true origin of his nicknames. One listener to William's poem in the flashback comments that he would rather have a railroad spike driven through his head than listen to any of William's poetry. Another notes that William is referred to as William the Bloody because of his bloody, awful poetry. It is learned that Spike has been in love with Buffy since they teamed up to save the world during Becoming Part 2, putting the rest of his feelings for her in Out of My Mind. The poem snatched from William's hands is the first draft of the poem that Spike later reads in its complete form at the open mic event Did Not Fade Away. This time received with enthusiastic applause from the audience. Spike and Cicely / Halfrek cross paths in Older and Far Away, on which occasion she calls him William, and he appears to recognize her, but both probably act as if nothing had happened. Spike takes over the coat from Nikki after he kills her. This is a jacket that Spike wears in almost every appearance from the start of Season 2 until the girl in question, when it gets destroyed in an explosion. This episode shows Drusilla siring Spike, a fact first revealed in Spike and Drew paint the town red. In Schoolhard, Joss says that Spike was barely 200, while in the initiative, Spike says that he was 126 years old. This episode definitely establishes that he was hired 120 years before. The second Slayer Spike kills, Nikki Wood, has a son named Robin, who later appears as Sunnydale High School's new principal in the 7th season. And last my parents told me, Robin appears as a child witnessing an earlier fight between Spike and his mother, who was trying to get revenge on Spike as an adult for his mother's death. In the Angel episode Damage, Spike appears the line, "Sorry love, I speak Chinese," when the Slayer Diana begins chilling other Slayers, including the one Spike killed in China. As real as Spike got the scar over his left eye, visible since Schoolhard, in a sword fight with a Chinese Slayer. The scene in South Africa is a reference to Lover's Walk. When Spike is drunkenly confiding in Willow, he mentions Drusilla making out with the Chaos Demon. The Chaos Demon, matching Spike's description as slime and antlers, is in the middle of the argument between Spike and Drew. In the graveyard scene, Xander doesn't comprehend Riley's military hand signals, suggesting that his knowledge from being transformed into a soldier in Halloween has completely faded. The this episode of Spike's past also appear in his memories in Relation Status Complicated, Part 1 and Part 2, as well as in Slayer Memories in Finale. The non-canon novel, These Are Actors, elaborates on Spike's actions immediately after being turned, which included him seeking out one of the men who insulted his poem and asking if he would prefer the railroad spike or the poem while holding a spike by his ear, with William allowing the man to say they would rather prefer the poem before seeing he doesn't have one, subsequently ramming the spike into the man's ear. According to the non-canonical comic Spike Old Times, Cecily was already the vengeful demon Halfrek at the time of her meeting with William, and subsequently massacred the room of people who had laughed at his poetic efforts. Oof. So now let's take a look at some production notes from this episode. This episode is named after a play of the same name. This episode is named after a play of the same title by Sam Shepard. The play's two protagonists, Eddie and May, struggle with an intense attraction to each other that disgusts them because they are brother and sister. They hate each other, yet cannot stay apart. As a result, They are doomed to be together and therefore damned. Riley's hand signal effect means increased speed, double time, rush. Drusilla siren's Spike is the fact that had been first revealed in the Buffy one-shot comic Spike and Drew Paid the Town Red. Co-written by James Marsters, Christopher Golden, and released a year before this episode's airing. Episode writer Doug Petrie says that the scene in which Spike and Angelus are fighting and try to stake each other, with Darla and Drusilla gone with glee, is a not very subtle allegory for female enjoyment of male homoeroticism. It's revealed how Spike got the scar over his left eye, which Dr. James Marsters actually got when he was mugged in New York. The intercutting scene when Spike is telling Buffy about his fight with Nikki was inspired by a scene from the film Reservoir Dogs. Spike taking Nikki's coat was an homage to Sin City comics, in which the character Marv gets increasingly better trench coats by taking them from his victims. The denim jumpsuit Harmony is wearing in this episode will later be worn by Cordelia in the Angel episodes Belonging and Over the Rainbow. The first draft for this episode had a monologue for Joyce about how great her life had been, but it was discarded. Petrie explains, quote, "It was absolutely awful. It was just this giant neon sign saying, 'I'm going to die.'" Ming Qiu, the actress who plays the Chinese Slayer, came back to Buffy in the final episode Chosen, playing one of the new Slayers. Oh, interesting. So now let's take a look at some pop culture references. The vampire star of the episode is wearing a t-shirt for the band The Clash. Buffy mentions snack food Cheetos when talking about expiration dates. Spike mentions the Discovery Channel, known for documentaries. As Angelus and Spike begin sparring, Drusilla refers to the card King of Cups, a card from the tarot. And then finally, let's take a look at some goofs. Spike reflects off the subway car's window several times during his fight with Nikki. As Buffy goes running off through the graveyard, the mast of the mobile lighting tower that is illuminating the scene is visible several times against the dark sky beyond the cemetery wall. Angelus says the D word. The glass in front of the display case beyond his left shoulder reflects something moving off camera, likely the boom operator maneuvering the boom microphone. At 28 minutes and 2 seconds, when the camera circles around Spike to pick up Buffy, the top of the boom microphone comes into frame above her head. At 31 minutes and 51 seconds, Spike throws a punch with his left hand. However, in the next frame, the follow-through was clearly with his right hand. At 36 minutes and 8 seconds, for several seconds, the transmitter clip to Spike's belt is visible. So I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to see Spike's backstory and as well as how he killed those two Slayers. And yeah, it was good to see a little bit of Angelus, so that's pretty cool. So yeah. So overall, I give Fool for Love 4 vampire steaks out of 5. When I tune in basically to the next episode, Shadow. So until then, here endeth the lesson.